Okay, this is a follow-up clarification video. I'm gonna try to respond to some of the issues or concerns that have been raised, and this is, I think, a lot of the comments that can be found that I'm kind of concerned with here are on this video that I posted called "Nature of Consciousness: Consciousness of Nature," and several people were kind of being critical of this, and I understand the criticisms. I think some part of me I'm sympathetic to them. Another part of me thinks I'm not sure that people really get what I'm saying, and I'm failing to make myself clear. First is Red Hut. This is what Red Hut says here. He says, I have no reason to think that life emerged by necessity or by some underlying set of cosmic instructions, unparsimonious. It seems that a world lacking conscious experiencers lacks conceptual systems. Nothing in that world has to cohere or make sense. Things there exist independently of any ability to comprehend them. That's what the person says. And sort of following up on some of this, Emblem of Being has been asking questions, sort of saying to me, I don't really understand how you're getting the inevitability of consciousness, or the claim that consciousness was logically implied by the materiality of the world. I mean, what exactly is it about the materiality that completes itself by way of consciousness? I mean, this is sort of, I guess, the question that's been raised, but as he phrases it, Emblem of Being says, what about the orderliness of the material cosmos are you saying precast or naturally necessitated the eventual manifestation of consciousness, and in light of which you're saying the emergence of consciousness was natural or somehow logical fulfillment? Do you just start with negation as an axiom to make this work? And then he says, how could consciousness be precast, since upon emergence it would have temporalized itself out of a kind of infinite past, purely material cosmos? Um, okay, I don't know if that is enough for people, for background for people, but you can check out the comments there. It's in the larger context, I think, of other discussions that are going on YouTube about, you know, does it make sense to claim that consciousness could have not been? Now, the position that I've been trying to give, and I've said it before, is that I think there are people who claim to be realists who are basically imaginationists. That is, they take their own imagination as disclosing some kind of realer than what they experience. That is, they take their experiences to be secondary, and then they assume that reality as they imagine it is reality as it is. I mean, this claim that the Red Hut makes, which is things there exist independently of any ability to comprehend them, says who? I want to see the evidence, A, that consciousness could have not emerged, and B, that things exist independent of consciousness. That's the one thing that no one would ever know. Now, I think we know what they're meaning. I think we get the point. I don't want to be stupid. We're not trying to be stupid about it, but there's something more profound that's being missed. See, I don't think I'm making this naive claim. And so some of the words and the phraseology that people are using is half the sandbagging. It has to do not with temporal emergence, but logical relations. That is, everything about the cosmos logically required consciousness or awareness or sentience. And when I say logically, I don't mean it like a math problem where you're going to come up with it. I just mean that the very orderliness of it, its diversity, its depth, its thickness, the variety of profiles, it is itself already precast, the possibility of some opening to it. Now, let me see, again, some of this is, people say, well, what do you mean? What are you trying to get at? Here's a line from Maurice Merleau-Ponty's book, The Visible and the Invisible. And he's talking about the body and the way that language relates to the body. I would just appropriate what he's saying and talk about consciousness in the world itself, because the body is a flesh of the world. But here's what Merleau-Ponty writes. He says, if we were to make completely explicit the architectonics of the human body, its ontological framework, and how it sees itself and how it hears itself, we would see that the structure of its mute world is such that all the possibilities of language are already given in it. Yeah, I mean, there's a sense in which, we could talk about light waves and sound waves, but we experience sounds and colors, and we experience temperatures. And I can try to say, well, no, there's really no such thing as temperature in the world. There's just, varieties of levels of activity of molecular interactions, and there's really no such thing as colors. And again, we can do that, but the diversity and the range of the kinds of phenomena here in the world already bespeak a kind of sentience. Now, I'm not talking about the necessity of a human consciousness. Yes, some people are colorblind. There are other people who have different sensory capacities that have been either damaged or disabled. Some people have greater, I guess, forms of sensory capacities. They've been enhanced in certain ways. Different organisms perceive very differently. I mean, I don't think any of this is questioning the variety of forms of awareness, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that on two fronts. One is that logically, yes, logically, it would seem that consciousness and awareness of the stuff is like a necessary dimension. I mean, when Einstein comes along and he says that time can't be separated off from the stuff, that people tried to imagine the stuff and then as if you're going to add time to it, not really as realizing that time is part of the very fabric of the stuff. I would argue the same thing about consciousness. First, that consciousness is time, that time and consciousness and thought are of the exact same fabric, and to the extent that you can't separate space and time, you can't think of a world independent of thought. It's part of the very fabric of the world, to the extent that time is natural to the world. Now, again, people are going to say, I think people hear this stuff like, I'm not suggesting some super fantastical consciousness that was there in the beginning or was necessary in some efficient cause, material, developmental way. I mean it in a sense of not only were all of the materialities that were here, the kind of physical dimensions, they have the dimensions and the profiles and the complexity that they do. I guess it's partly a depth that sentience is to complete it. I mean, I don't know what else word to use. I think the more radical claim, let's just push the envelope, is that the people who claim otherwise are basically imaginativists. That is, they want to claim that how they imagine is the real world, but they're not accepting the fact. And the fact is that consciousness did emerge and that no one has ever known a world in which there wasn't consciousness. There has never, ever, ever been a world to which consciousness wasn't already there. Okay, thank you.